Things like writing, math, astronomy, agriculture, all that was a gift from the Anunnaki.
That's incredible. But what about those huge structures like the pyramids and obelisks? All right, strap in everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into one of the most intriguing theories about human history. We're talking about the Anunnaki and their home planet Nibiru.
Oh, absolutely fascinating stuff.
You bet. You send over some seriously cool Sumerian texts, some pretty wild mythology,
Yeah.
and even a couple of scientific studies. So let's see if we can untangle this whole thing together.
It really is kind of a puzzle, isn't it?
It is.
We're going to be jumping around from ancient Sumerian culture and their crazy advanced achievements
Oh, yeah.
to the possibility of genetic manipulation
Mm-hmm.
and even a planet that might be hiding out there in our solar system.
Yeah, I don't know, it's like weaving together history, science, and mythology all at once.
Yeah.
But before we get too far, let's back up for a second.
Okay.
For anyone who might not be familiar with the Anunnaki, can you give us a quick rundown of who they are and what this theory is all about?
Sure. So the theory basically says that the Anunnaki were these advanced beings, maybe aliens, who came to Earth thousands of years ago from a planet called Nibiru.
Nibiru, all right.
Now, if you believe the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki needed gold to fix their planet's atmosphere.
Right.
And they saw Earth as this like gold mine, literally,
Okay.
and decided to, well, mine it.
Makes sense. So they come here for the gold, but where do humans fit into all of this?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The theory suggests that instead of doing the hard work themselves, the Anunnaki, they genetically engineered humans by combining their DNA with early hominids that were already here on Earth.
Hold on, so you're saying, are we talking about like the let there be light kind of creation story here?
Well, the Sumerian texts do describe the creation of humans in a way that kind of sounds familiar, you know,
Yeah.
to the biblical story of Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Even the first human, this guy Adamu, is said to have been put in this like garden paradise, very similar to the Garden of Eden.
So are we saying that the Bible is like an alien creation story?
No, not exactly. It's more complicated than that. It's more like both the Sumerian and the biblical creation stories probably changed over time, right? And they drew on older oral traditions.
Right.
And reflect, how people back then understood creation. But the similarities between the two are definitely worth looking into.
All right, I'm game. So the Anunnaki create humans to be their miners. Did everything go according to plan?
Well, like any good story, there's a bit of a twist.
Okay.
You see, the Anunnaki's creation led to some unintended consequences.
Oh.
When the Anunnaki and humans,
Yeah.
started interbreeding, it created a new line of humans
Ooh.
who were smarter,
Yeah.
but also way more prone to violence. And as the human population exploded, tensions rose. And according to some interpretations of the text, the Anunnaki even tried to control their creation, with plagues even.
Wow, things got a little messy.
A little bit.
But you mentioned Sumerian culture earlier.
Yes.
What makes Sumer so important to all of this?
Sumer. They were so ahead of their time, it's incredible. We're talking about a civilization that pops up in Mesopotamia, something like 4,500 BC,
Right.
and boom, out of nowhere, they've got writing,
Wow.
math, astronomy, agriculture, law codes, even wheeled vehicles.
It's like they skipped a few steps.
They were light years ahead of every other culture at the time.
So this sudden explosion of knowledge, is that part of what fuels the whole Anunnaki theory?
Exactly. It's like somebody flipped a switch.
Yeah.
And suddenly, humans went from, hunting and gathering to building ziggurats and complex irrigation systems.
Yeah.
You can't help but wonder where all that knowledge came from.
I'm starting to see the connections here, but if the Anunnaki were so advanced, wouldn't we have found more solid evidence of them? Like, shouldn't there be something more concrete?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. That's the core of the debate, right?
Yeah.
Some folks argue that the archaeological evidence just isn't there,
Right.
but others point to some pretty weird anomalies.
Like what?
Like those elongated skulls found in different parts of the world as possible signs of the Anunnaki's influence.
Oh, interesting.
For example, those Paracas skulls from Peru, they have DNA markers that are typically only found in people from the Middle East.
That's a pretty big jump geographically.
It is. And then there's that TKTO1 gene.
Right. The one that plays a role in how our brains develop.
Exactly. It's a fascinating piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that there's just a single amino acid difference between the human version of this gene and the version found in other primates. Some researchers even think this difference could be a sign of, get this, genetic manipulation by the Anunnaki.
Wow.
Potentially explaining why human intelligence developed so quickly.
Okay, I have so many questions. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about this mysterious planet Nibiru. I mean, does this thing actually exist, or is it just a myth?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's been bugging researchers for ages. While there's no definitive proof that Nibiru is real, there's some pretty interesting scientific evidence that suggests it might not be entirely out there.
Wait, are you talking about Planet 9?
Yes.
The hypothetical one that astronomers think might be lurking way out there on the edge of our solar system?
That's the one.
Yes!
The one that's causing all sorts of gravitational weirdness in the outer solar system. And some folks think that Planet 9 could be the very same planet that the Sumerians called Nibiru, a planet with a super long orbit
Wow.
that swings by Earth every once in a while, causing all kinds of chaos.
Okay, this is getting good. So we've got a potential hidden planet, advanced beings digging for gold, genetic engineering, and the sudden rise of Sumerian civilization. It's like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It's quite a story, isn't it? And like any good mystery, there are still a ton of unanswered questions. But that's what makes this so fascinating. The possibility that there's more to our history, more to our origins than we currently understand.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've dug up some more fascinating details about the Anunnaki's time on Earth.
I have.
Their dealings with humans and their eventual departure. Let's dig into those next.
Let's do it. Let's unearth those hidden chapters of history.
Sounds good to me. All right, I'm ready for more. We've talked about the Anunnaki coming to Earth, maybe creating humans, and even possibly leaving behind some evidence. But then what happened? Did they just, like, hop back in their spaceships and fly back to Nibiru?
Well, not exactly. Remember, we're dealing with a story about creation, intervention, and leaving. And the way the Anunnaki left Earth, it's just as interesting as their arrival.
Okay.
But before we get to that, let's backtrack a little.
Okay.
And explore another piece of the Anunnaki story, the Aigi.
The Aigi. Those were, weren't they like a slave race or something?
You got it.
That the Anunnaki brought to Earth before humans.
Exactly. And even though there's no solid archaeological proof they existed, this whole idea of the Aigi, it just adds another layer to the Anunnaki story, you know?
It's wild. So you're saying they had a whole other workforce before humans?
Imagine that. A race brought from another planet to work as miners for the Anunnaki.
It sounds like a science fiction movie. But if all this really happened, the arrival of these beings, the creation of humans, the rebellion of the Aigi, wouldn't early humans have remembered it somehow?
Exactly. And that's where those flood myths from all over the world come in.
Oh, interesting.
What if those myths, so similar across cultures, are actually echoes of this huge event?
You mean like a massive flood?
Caused by Nibiru passing by.
Wow.
An event that changed the Earth and wiped out most of the Aigi.
So we're talking about a global catastrophe.
Yeah, almost like hitting the reset button for humanity.
And maybe this is why the Anunnaki created a new, more adaptable workforce.
That's one way to look at it. And this cataclysmic event, the flood, could explain why we haven't found much hard proof of the Anunnaki or the Aigi.
Right, because it was all destroyed.
Maybe most of it was washed away in the flood.
So, okay, the flood wipes out most life on Earth, including the Aigi, and the Anunnaki are left with this new species, humans. But they're still pretty primitive at this point, right? So what do? Just abandon us and leave us to figure things out on our own?
Not quite. The theory is that before they left, the Anunnaki kind of jump-started human civilization. Remember how we were talking about those advanced Sumerians?
Yeah, they were way ahead of their time.
Well, what if their knowledge, things like writing, math, astronomy, agriculture, all that was a gift from the Anunnaki?
So like a parting gift.
Yeah, a legacy to help humans rebuild and advance.
That's incredible. But what about those huge structures like the pyramids and obelisks?
Ah, good point.
I mean, there's no way early humans could have built those on their own, right?
You're right to be skeptical. The precision, the sheer size, the way they line up with the stars.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder. Those structures suggest a level of knowledge and skill that just seems beyond early humans. Some researchers even think that the Anunnaki might have helped build them, maybe leaving behind advanced tools or even guiding humans along the way.
So those structures, like the pyramids, could be more than just tombs or monuments. They could be evidence that the Anunnaki were here, proof of their advanced technology and how they influenced human civilization.
It's definitely a possibility. And it makes you wonder if they left behind other traces, any other clues to their existence. This is where Zecharia Sitchin's work comes in.
Oh yeah, Zecharia Sitchin. His books are actually how I first learned about the Anunnaki.
Right.
He's the author who made this whole theory popular
He's the one.
by interpreting those ancient Sumerian texts.
Exactly. Sitchin believed that the Sumerian texts weren't just myths and stories, but actual historical records of the Anunnaki and their interactions with humans. And while some scholars don't agree with his translations and how he interpreted things, his work really sparked people's interest in the Anunnaki. It made people look at those old texts and archaeological evidence in a whole new way.
So he was like, what, a modern-day Indiana Jones, deciphering these ancient clues and revealing this hidden history that totally changes how we view the past.
He definitely captured the imagination of a lot of people.
He did.
And even if we don't agree with everything he said, you can't deny that Sitchin's work opened up a whole world of possibilities. It made us question everything we thought we knew about our origins and whether extraterrestrials have ever visited us.
It's like we're peeling back layers of history, uncovering secrets that have been hidden for thousands of years. But even with Sitchin's interpretations and all the strange things we've talked about, some people are still skeptical. What do they say about the Anunnaki theory?
Well, skepticism is important in any scientific discussion.
Right, of course.
And it's important to say that there are valid criticisms of the Anunnaki theory. Some people say the evidence is too weak, that Sitchin's translations are wrong, and that the whole theory is based on too many assumptions.
So how do we figure out what to believe? How do we separate fact from fiction in this whole tangled mess of history, mythology, and speculation?
That's the tough part, isn't it? It's like we're detectives putting together pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
We have bits and pieces from ancient texts, archaeological findings, and scientific anomalies. And like any good detective story, we need to follow the evidence, look at the clues, and see where they take us.
All right, so we've journeyed through ancient Sumer, we've looked at these weird archaeological finds, and we've even considered that there might be a hidden planet hanging out in our solar system. But I gotta ask, if this Anunnaki story is more than just a myth, what does it all mean for us? Like, what can we learn from it, and how does it change how we see humanity's place in the universe?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
The Anunnaki story, whether it's totally true or just a mix of fact and myth, it makes us think differently about where we came from, our history, and even where we might be headed.
So let's start with the really big picture, our place in the universe. The Anunnaki theory suggests that we might not be the only intelligent life out there, and that maybe we've been visited or even had our evolution nudged along by extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
So how does that change our perspective on humanity's role in the cosmos?
Well, for a long time, we've thought of ourselves as like the top of the food chain, right? The only ones with intelligence and consciousness in this vast, uncaring universe.
Right.
But the Anunnaki story, if it's true, totally blows that idea out of the water.
Yeah.
It suggests that we might just be a small part of this much bigger, more complex web of life, maybe even a whole community of civilizations scattered across the galaxy.
That's a pretty big change in how we see things.
It is.
It's like going from thinking we're the only fish in the pond
Right.
to realizing there's a whole ocean out there full of life.
Exactly. And it opens up all these amazing questions.
Like what?
Like, are there other civilizations out there like the Anunnaki? Have they visited other planets?
Right.
Made contact with other species? Are we part of this bigger cosmic story that we're just starting to understand?
It's wild to think about. But let's come back down to Earth for a second.
Okay.
If the Anunnaki really did influence human civilization, like the theory says, what can we actually learn from their story? Are there any lessons there? Any warnings we should pay attention to as we move forward as a species?
You know, the Anunnaki story, it's got a lot of cautionary tales in it.
Like what?
Well, we see how fighting over resources can lead to trouble. We see the ethical issues that come with genetic engineering, and we see how messing with another species' evolution can have consequences we didn't expect.
So it's like this cosmic mirror showing us our own potential for both good and bad.
Exactly. The Anunnaki story, it encourages us to be more careful, more responsible. As we get more advanced with technology and start exploring space more, it reminds us that what we do has an impact not just on us, but on any other life we might encounter out there.
It's like a wake-up call from the universe, telling us to be wise and humble as we step into the unknown. But there's also a sense of wonder in the Anunnaki story, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
The idea that we might be descendants of, or at least influenced by, this super advanced alien civilization, it's both humbling and awe-inspiring.
It is. It makes you realize we're capable of incredible things,
Yeah.
that we have the potential for amazing technology, creativity, and exploration.
It's true.
Maybe the Anunnaki story is a reminder of our own cosmic roots, a spark that pushes us to reach for the stars and unlock the secrets of the universe.
And hey, maybe as we explore space, we'll actually find proof of the Anunnaki, or maybe other civilizations that have left their mark out there.
That's the exciting part of exploration, right?
Yeah.
That chance of discovering something new, something totally unexpected.
Absolutely.
The Anunnaki story might just be the first chapter in a much bigger, more epic adventure that we're just beginning to understand.
So what's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this? What do you hope they'll think about after this deep dive into the Anunnaki?
I hope they'll leave with a sense of curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
a willingness to question what they think they know, and an appreciation for all the mysteries surrounding our origins and where we fit in the grand scheme of things. The Anunnaki story, it reminds us that we still have so much to learn, so much to discover.
That's a great point.
And maybe, in searching for answers about the Anunnaki, we'll find even deeper truths about ourselves.
Well said. It's been awesome exploring the Anunnaki theory with you.
It has.
And who knows, maybe someday, with more research and exploration and a little open-mindedness, we'll finally uncover the truth behind this amazing ancient tale. Until then, we can keep wondering about the possibilities and keep searching for the answers to those big questions about the universe and our place in it.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening, everyone.